a year ago. You're 16 now, right?
Yeah.
Remind me when this all started for you. The eating disorder stuff.
And like probably when I was in 9th grade, when I was 14, it started then, pretty much like right after like a bad breakup.
With a boy.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when did you reach out to finally get help?
Well, just like in general for eating disorder therapy.
Yeah.
I reached out in about like 10th grade.
So about within a year?
Yeah.
So that tells me you were pretty miserable.
Yeah, I was.
Got it. Yeah, so you got initially, I'm assuming initially you got a lot out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling like you were in control, feeling like I'm going to make things better.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that changed, right? To hell, misery, darkness, aloneness, complete obsessiveness. Can't think about anything other than this. I'm assuming there was a flip at some point that occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at that point, did you go and get help because you wanted help, or was it because your parents wanted you to get help, or teachers wanted you to get help, or?
Well, first my mom did, because I already was seeing a therapist, and like I started talking to the therapist about like eating disorder stuff, and then she sent me to like another place, and they wanted me to do inpatient, and I didn't want to do that, so I didn't do it, and I didn't actually go back to like an eating disorder place till like a couple months later.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and at that
point, I really did want to get help.
You did want to get help.
Yeah.
Okay, but the point so when I talk about wanting to get help, that's the point where you're like, how do I get out of this? I don't want it anymore. How do I get out? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whereas before you went to get therapy and did all that stuff, you were like, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing. There's nothing they can say. I'm not giving this up. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to kind of get it. What I'm trying to do right now is kind of get a sense of where you're at today and how you got here.
Yeah.
So then you went into inpatient.
I didn't go into inpatient. They wanted me to, but I was like, no, I don't want to spend a month there. I don't want to do that. And then my parents pretty much like gave it up until later on. Like maybe 6 months later, I asked them for help again, and I went and did outpatient therapy.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask where you went?
First I went to the Emily program.
The Emily Clinic. Yeah, in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
And then I went to Melrose, or yeah, something like that. I think that's what it's called.
I'm assuming while you were there, tell me what your experience was like.
Well, basically, at that point, I was already watching your videos and stuff, and I already found them, and I was like, wow, you make a lot of sense. And I got there, and I realized that they didn't have the same ideas, and they were still very it almost stressed me out more to just go there and to have a dietitian and all of that.
Yeah.
It would stress me out more.
Yeah.
And I just could tell that it wasn't helping. And sometimes I'd say the things that I'd learned from your videos, and they'd be like, "Wow, how did you know that?"
Did you ever say, "There's this lady on YouTube"?
Yeah, I did say that, and they were like, "Oh, that's weird. I'll have to look into that." I don't know.
Well, here's the thing with when you get into a clinic, it's a medical environment. There's insurance involved.
Yeah.
And the first thing they're looking to do is make sure you stay alive. So they're wanting to make sure you get enough nutrition, that you're lessening the likelihood of having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
right? They're thinking that route. And by force feeding and having a dietitian, that to me, when I reached out for help and the therapist was like, I think you need to count your calories, I was just like, what the hell am I here for?
Yeah.
Only because, and it's like, I don't need help with that. What? I'd like to stop counting my calories. Why do I need to regulate my food intake? That's the last thing I need more of.
Yeah.
So it's actually counterintuitive in hindsight, right? And you kind of could see it too. It's like counterintuitive for you to want to control my food. Isn't that the problem? Isn't the goal that we stop controlling food, but yet your solution is to control my food?
Yeah, I remember I would just turn that into a diet in my head.
Oh, of course. Of course. Because the end goal is always set to being thinner. Always. They may see that's the issue, but they're thinking, well, it's because she doesn't have proper diet and nutrition. Anyways. So you went to the, when did you decide I'm not going to finish with outpatient?
Pretty much the more I kept watching your videos and the more I realized it was going to take years, and I was like, I don't
years,
have that much time.
Got it, years with outpatient.
So I basically told my parents, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going. They tried to still force me to go, but...
Well, and you could understand why they would do that out of their own fear. Well, I so get that. Because they don't know what's going on, and you would assume, this is the thing, you would assume that when someone says they're an expert and this is what they do for a living and they have a whole clinic and they got insurance companies involved, that they should be the experts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried telling my parents about you, but my dad in particular just really didn't trust it because it wasn't you weren't licensed or anything.
I'm not a therapist. I'm not a therapist, people. I just have I have recovered myself, and I didn't have there's no program to do how I recovered. There is no program currently that exists that is aware of enough that they can actually have a solution to what it is, right? So unfortunately, you live in an age and I lived in an age, which is pretty much the same age, even though we're 20 years apart here, or more actually. We live in an age where eating disorders are seen as a disorder or a disease. And that to me is so misguiding. That is so off the mark. But the people who are studying it have never had it. They've never suffered from it. So it's kind of hard for them to know it's off the mark.
Yeah.
They're kind of studying it on the outside going, well, let's look at their behavior. And they're looking at us like rats. We're the ones inside of it that know exactly what's going on. But we don't. We don't really know what's going on. We're just driven by these impulses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you were watching my YouTube videos, you probably connected with the fact that I was describing what's going on the inside.
Yeah.
How does she know that? How did she make that connection? The only way she would know that is if she was inside of this.
Uh-huh.
Right? Anyway, so it's hopefully you feel hope. Obviously, you are 16 years old and you are paying for this yourself, and I am really proud of you. I am really proud of you. I have a 16-year-old daughter. That is amazing to me. So that tells me a lot about your desire to really get this freaking done. Are you ready for this to be over yet?
I am ready.
So we talked a year ago. Actually, your parents sent me a request form. It was so amazing. I think I recall might have been your mom, who was like, we think you're the only one we think that can help our daughter. It's amazing. I've kept her request form, to be honest with you, because to me it's so telling about how horrible this is.
My mom really supports this, but my dad doesn't.
Yeah, so. That's okay. I think that it's worthy of respecting his skepticism. Mm-hmm. There's no proof here. And so that need for proof and relevance is very understandable when someone really doesn't understand it. And so this is a risk. This to him is gambling.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's okay for him to feel that way because he doesn't really get it. So can you see how that would feel that way?
Yeah, I understand what he's coming from.
Totally. I do too. So I think that that's valid for him to feel that way, and I wouldn't want to change that. So, but what's really truthful here, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's honored this, that you know more than anybody the issue here, and you're the one that's got to drive this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're the one that's got to drive the recovery process, not him. And he probably gets that. So, but isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, because do you really want your mother, even if she is supportive, do you really want them involved in this recovery process?
Not really, I don't.
Well, because they have nothing to do with it. So once they get involved, now we have to please them and do what's right for them because you don't want to. And I knew this for myself as well, that I couldn't afford to live with my parents. Now, I was 20. I was 19 and 20, so I was in a different position. I had the choice, okay? I knew for me that if I lived with my parents, I would have to sustain and live in the environment that they wanted me to be in. That was not healthy for me. Now, that's because of the religion that I was raised in and how intense it was, and that was their way of solving everything, and that was actually a big source of my cause. But yeah. I still believe to this day that even if I were to have to go back and live in that, I could recover within that environment. At the time, though, I didn't know any different, so I couldn't. So, with that said, no matter what environment you're in with your parents, this is absolutely recoverable. And we can recover instantaneously once you do it. Okay?
Yeah.
And it is instant. It's the instant you don't care about your weight. That's how quickly this happens.
Okay.
Can you see that?
I can.
Yeah. You might not know how. You might go, but I don't know how to do that. But I could,
Yeah,
that's okay. You don't need to know how. You really don't. All you need to be aware of is if I don't care about my weight one way or the other, whether I'm thinner or fatter or moving up and down, if I don't care about that, then this entire problem disappears. Can you see that? Can you see it?
I can see that.
That right there's a miracle. The fact that you can even see that is a miracle. So you've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, I remember trying to explain that to my therapist, like, because she's like, well, what is this lady do? And I'm like, well, basically she gets you to that point where you don't care if you're 100 pounds or 500 pounds, like.
Indifference.
Yeah.
The key here, I just recorded a video actually, just explaining this, that the key with indifference, do you understand what that is when I say indifference?
Yes.
That it's here nor there. It's kind of like, do I paint my fingernails red or pink? It's when you go, I don't care. That's the feeling. Right? So the way you get there is that you believe in your heart. Okay, this has to come not from your mind, where you've been overactive, right? Your mind has been super vigilant in controlling, and that's what we want relief from, right? Is that mental obsessiveness, controllingness, constantly having to micromanage this and then that and then this and then that, and how do I do this and that? That is we can call that the disorder if we want to, okay? We want that removed. So the only way to remove that is if you don't care about the outcome. Now, the outcome of the body, you have to give grace or give like lenience. Okay, what that means is that you give your weight and size and measurements and those parameters that you've attached safety to. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
I do.
The rules are like, I remember measuring my stomach. I had to be 29 inches, right? 29. And if it could go below 29, it has to stay below 29. You know, that's just a parameter, right? It's like being 5'9" or 5'2", or it's just a parameter or a number that we're using to gauge what's going on. I had to give it a ton of lenience, meaning it had to be okay with 35 if it was 35. Okay. The only way you're going to do that, going from I have to have a 29-inch waist to I'm okay with 35-inch waist, is you have to be willing to forgive 35-inch waist and say that even if to my thin ideal of 29 inches that is superior, I have to look at 35 inches and say that is so forgivable. It's understandable how that happens, that the body is that way. Should I feel shame with a 35-inch waist, right?
Yeah.
So, before I go any further, I really want to get a grasp of where you're at. So where are you at right now? Are you functioning in your anorexia? Are you bulimic? Where are you at in your controllingness of all this?
I'd say probably more like bulimic, not like throwing up, but like I need over-exercise anytime that
you overeat. Yeah. So that's exercise bulimia, right? So you're still purging. It's just not through vomiting. Do you vomit ever?
No, not anymore.
When was the last time you actually vomited food up?
Probably almost a year ago.
Freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is your binges are much smaller.
They are.
Yeah. Can you see why that would make sense? Why on this side of it, I don't know what the hell you've been doing. It's easily and predictable. Once someone stops purging or puking, the binges get a lot smaller. Why do you think?
You can't exercise off that big of a binge.
You got it. Everything is trying to maintain your weight. So if you aren't going to purge it out, you got to find a way to purge that is equal to that you can manage, right?
Yeah.
So the binge, minimizing the amount of food you eat, even if it's still overeating, and overeating is in relation, we come to that overeating definition because of the restrictions. So it's overeating relative to your restrictions, right?
Yeah.
You have to you have to find a way to balance it out. So if you're not puking, you have to really, really think about how you're going to overeat, right? So that makes the binging less humongous. When someone's going to puke, those binges get massive. They're massive because you're going to release it immediately. Mm-hmm. Now, when you think back to what I'm talking about, doesn't that just sound horrible?
Yeah, that sucked way more.
Oh, it does. It is so much darker and there's more torment for someone in bulimia, for sure. I do want to make a point too. Don't you agree? Because you've been to outpatient, right?
Yeah.
You've been to 2 different places. You have therapists. How many therapists have you been to? Just one?
I basically had a therapist since 8th grade for just general stuff. Mm-hmm. But eating disorder therapist, it was you had a therapist, a dietitian.
Yeah, team.
Yes, yeah, just a team.
Don't you agree that they don't have a clue how bad this is?
No.
Right? If you could give them a pill that would give them the experience, they would come out of it going, we're way off. This is bad. This is bad. Horribleness bad. That's something that I have also come to realize, that when people who really don't understand it, when they think of an eating disorder, they are clueless around how dark it is.
Yeah.
How small it is. That right there, I think, is really relevant in your own description of it. Not to paint it to be worse than it is, but to be very aware of how bad it is, right? Okay, that to me was very, very important, because when it came down to the willingness to gain weight, I had to compare my fear of gaining weight and what I thought gaining weight would do to me. I had to compare that to the horror of the life I was living avoiding that weight gain.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
It does.
If something doesn't make sense, it's really important that you tell me, because I can rethink it, re-explain it. So I just want to make sure you're comfortable just saying, I don't understand. Okay?
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying so far.
Okay, good. So when you look at, for example, what you're afraid of, if you overeat, and again, overeating is in relation to your diet, your restrictions, your management. If you're overeating, the result of that, okay, what is that? What is the result of that?
I just get really uncomfortable. Like, I feel like terrible. And, like, especially if I can't, like, I usually have to, like, wait till exercise, because, like, you have a full stomach, you can't do it on the stomach. Like, just that waiting period before I can, like, go get rid of it.
What goes on in your mind? What does it feel like?
I feel like I can, like, physically feel myself gaining weight.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Feels like you're huge in that moment. Doesn't it feel, one way that I described it is that it feels like I gotta crawl out of my skin. Like I'm trying to leave. I'm trying to get out of my body.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it.
It's kind of like, the body is threatening you. The body is dangerous. But is it really the body, or is it the fatness?
Fatness.
Mm-hmm. Fatness. You got it. That was a big deal for me. You know what was crazy is until I became aware, I was solely unaware of that. I thought that sounded ridiculous. I went through my entire disorder not knowing that until the moment I recovered, or moments as I recovered. Had no clue. Oh, the reason why I am doing all this crazy shit is because of that feeling of being fat. I don't know why I never connected it. Of course, it was like, well, of course I don't want to be fat. But I never really, it was like unconscious. It was undiscussed. It was like, in the videos, have you ever heard me talk about dogma?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you understand what that is?
Like, basically just like something that's like ingrained in you.
Yeah, it's something you believe in that you've never questioned. You just said it's true, and you just never questioned it. So it was a moment where I realized I've never questioned that. I am doing all of this insanity. I am willing to commit suicide over this feeling or fear of being fat. I never questioned that. So when we talk about that feeling that you get when you feel you're getting fat, if someone else had those feelings, don't you agree? They would do the same things you do. They would do the same exact weird exercise stuff.
Yeah.
To the same intensity. They'd have to find a way to get out of that feeling. It's agreed?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you look at that, is it really all that weird?
No.
It's only weird when you look at it from the outside. It's like, why would someone do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because there's a feeling there that is so intense that this is what it takes to get rid of it. So that feeling that's so intense, that feeling of your skin crawling and wanting to leave your body, if you don't have the choice to leave that body, then you have to do something to get rid of that feeling. So what you're doing to get rid of that feeling is what you're trying to recover from, right?
Yeah.
The goal here is that you don't have to go exercise this way, that you're not a slave to these things you got to do, right? To get rid of that feeling, to avoid that feeling, to hide that feeling, to prevent that feeling from coming. Don't you agree that what we call the disorder is everything you're doing to get rid of that feeling?
Yeah.
So if you want to recover, meaning get freedom from everything you have to do that has taken over your life, what are you going to have to do?
Stop doing those things.
Well, what's going to happen if you stop?
Just got to sit there with that feeling, I guess.
You're going to have to face it. Not just sit there, but you're right. You have to sit there, but you're going to have to face it.
Yeah.
What do you think I mean when I say you got to face it?
Not sure.
What do you think the difference is between sitting with that feeling and facing that feeling?
Looking at it.
You got it. There's a big difference between sitting and facing it. If you sit with it, what's going to change?
Not that much.
Eventually, you're going to leave. You're going to escape it again. When I say what you're going to have to do, here's what I had to do. I had to face the feeling. That means I have to look at it, like you just said. What do you think it's going to feel like to look at it?
Not good.
Right? Well, it's not. It's not comfortable. Would you say you're afraid?
Yeah.
What do you think's going to happen? What does that emotional mind tell you is going to happen? If you face that feeling and look at it, open your eyes, acknowledge its existence.
It just feels like something bad is going to happen.
Yeah. It does. You know what it felt like to me?
What?
It felt like it was going to kill me.
Yeah. It just sort of feels that.
Well, I don't know if you've ever sat with it or faced it enough for that to come up. Have you? Have you ever really sat with it?
I've tried a couple times. It usually doesn't last that long. They just end up going and running away from it.
Yeah. So that's what happens when you sit with it. Because you're not necessarily doing it willfully, if that makes sense. You're doing it because you think you have to. So I want you to think about what's going to happen if you don't really face it.
Guess nothing will change.
It won't. How much longer can you do what you're doing?
I don't know. Really not that much longer.
Right? It's really rough. So one of the things I realized too is that, again, you're held hostage to everything you have to do to not face it, to hide it, to remove it, to avoid it, to suppress it, to prevent it, right? So how much longer can you do all that? Well, in the end, it always comes back, right? It always comes back. And have you noticed that it comes back stronger every freaking time?
Yeah.
And so what's the alternative here? If you want freedom from everything you have to do to push it down, to hide it, to run away from it, to avoid it, to prevent it, if you want freedom from this basically running your life, what are you going to have to do?
Face it.
You do. Yeah, let's face it. So go into that feeling of fatness. I know you know exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
You knew exactly when I was describing it, that's what it feels like. It feels like I've got to leave my body. It feels horrible. It feels like that something bad is going to happen. So I want you to, in your mind, I want you to go into what life would be like if you don't do what you're doing. If you do nothing, okay? If you no longer exercise, you no longer micromanage food, you no longer have any controls around what you eat. That is completely eliminated from possibility. what's going to happen? What's the first thing that you feel?
You're going to get fat.
Yes, you are. Right? That's what it felt like for me too. Felt like I was going to be huge. Don't you agree at some point the body's going to stop? It doesn't just keep on going and going and going until you blow up. There's going to be a stop point. Am I right? Do you get a sense of that?
Yeah.
So what's going to happen if you get that big? Whatever big that is. What does your mind say? What does your mind say you'll weigh? If you do nothing.
I'd be like 150, around 160 pounds.
Now, is that your logic speaking? Like, is that your intelligence? Or is that what you truly emotionally are afraid of?
I feel like it's a little bit mixed.
Okay.
Because emotionally, like, I don't really feel like I would get bigger than that. I mean, I feel like I know I'd get bigger than that if, like, this was just, like, if I just kept binging.
Yeah, but binging will go away, right? Because if you're not dieting anymore, then there's nothing to fail. Make sense?
Yeah. Like, even, like, emotionally, like, I guess I haven't even, like, considered, like, weighing even more than that.
Well, what does your fear tell you? What's your biggest fear? Go into the worst case scenario. What's your fear tell you? Not your rational mind.
I feel like mostly that I'm gonna look fatter than everyone else around me.
Okay, let's just go there. That you're going to be bigger than everybody else around you. Okay. I want you to imagine that in your mind. I want you to visualize you're the person that is the largest. Everywhere you go. How does that make you feel?
Terrible.
Let's describe it.
Like, I don't know. Like,
And are you feel any sense of embarrassment?
yeah, I do.
You feel worthless?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Pretty much, probably just be like ashamed.
Why do you think? Why? What is it? Are you afraid people are going to think that you're a bad person?
I don't know. I don't think that people would think I was a bad person. I just, like, wouldn't be seen. I feel like they'd see me, like, a lot different. They wouldn't, like, respect me as much. They wouldn't have as many boys, like, complimenting me. I wouldn't have all those.
You wouldn't get the same attention. You wouldn't be the center of attention or get attention.
Yeah.
So you like attention. You want respect, right? That's like being seen as superior, seen as special.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be special anymore.
Mm-mm.
Right? Would you say that it would feel like you are as if you're invisible?
Yeah. It would feel like that.
What would happen if that was the truth? Like, that's the truth of your body is that big. What would happen if that was the actual truth? Like if you were to just eat to hunger, eat whatever you want, right? So we're taking all that crazy controllingness away, right? So all you're really doing, and you're not binging, because the binging is only in relation to the shame and the need to fix things, right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
And your body's natural state is, let's say, 200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth of the body you're in. What if that's the truth?
I feel like I'd probably live my life a lot different. I don't know.
Well, let's talk about it. What would it feel like?
I wouldn't be able to wear the same clothes.
Mm-mm.
I wouldn't feel like comfortable going out. I wouldn't be around people. Sometimes I feel like a lot of the friends I hang out with, like especially like the guys, like they only like me there because like I'm like attractive.
Okay, so so are you miserable and in this dark space so that they'll find you attractive?
That sounds stupid when you say it,
But it's true. You need to hear it. You're suffering right now and spending all this money because you want them to think you're attractive. You want them to feel a fleeting moment of, she's cute. You live in misery. They get a moment of feeling attracted to you.
Yeah.
So you're doing this. You live this way. You have to exercise. You're their slave for the moment. Just a moment that they go, she's cute. I like her. She's hot. Would you be willing to let that go? If it meant that's the cost for freedom, is that people aren't going to think you're cute. Do you really want people to like you?
I don't
Hold on,
like
because of thinness. Because of thinness, that they're friends with you or they like you only because you're thinner.
No, I don't want those kind of people around.
Well, that's what you're doing by accommodating, right? I mean, you're accommodating to people like that. Because you're not willing to just be yourself, right? To be the truth. You want the attention. You want the respect. So I want you to imagine that in order for you to be free, that people that only respect you because of thinness aren't going to respect you anymore. That people that only think you have worth because of your body image, they're not going to think you're worth anything anymore.
Yeah. See, I feel like if I did that, I'd have a whole different, I'd get rid of a lot of people in my life.
Probably. You would. They would, because to them, right, they think you should do everything it takes to be thin. That means you have to live in hell, total and complete, suicidal type of hell to be thin. I want you to think about that for a second. Should you have to live that way just for someone else to think you're worth something?
No.
They have a fleeting moment to say, wow, she's worth something. And then they go on with their life, right?
Yeah.
And then what do you have to do?
To keep doing this shit.
Yeah, just for them, for that moment. So you live 24/7 in misery just so that in that moment they see you, they go, wow, she's special. And then they move on. And those are the people. Those people hold the key to your life, basically. You have handed them your life. They will tell me I'm special, so I have to do everything they want me to do for that moment to get respect. I want their respect. Do you really, really want to earn respect from people because you're thin?
No. And when I really think about it, I don't want them to like me for that.
Right. Wouldn't you rather people like you for whatever's truthful about yourself? Like something true. That's innate. Do you know what innate means?
No.
Built in.
Okay.
Like real. Something that is super real. That you don't have to develop, improve. It's just natural. Right? Does that make sense to you, what I'm saying? Like, because you could say, in a sense, you're lying to people. You don't even know what's real, right? I'm assuming when I say that, you're like, I don't even know what that is. What is real?
I don't know.
Right? Could you see if you feel empty, why you would be clutching onto these kind of facades of realness? Do you know what a facade is?
Like a lie?
Yeah, it's like the illusion. It's like I'm gonna put a fake, like, character. I'm playing a character. I'm not being like me. I don't know what me is, so I'm just gonna play a character of what I think people want.
Okay.
So I want to go back to this realness. Like, what if the truth of the body that you have and you're attached to is 200 pounds? That's the truth. That is the body that you will have if you do nothing about it, right? Natural state. It manages itself. You eat when you're hungry. You eat when your hunger's gone. It doesn't take much food. You don't have to obsess about it, but you get the freedom of enjoying what you want. No shame, no guilt, no having to worry about it, think about it, or controlling every thought that you have, right? It doesn't require you exercise. It's natural, right?
Yeah.
Could you come out of the closet with that body? And what would happen if you did?
I feel like I could.
Well, let's go into what would happen.
Well, I don't know. Like, I feel like most of my life is like revolved around how I look like.
Well,
So
trying to change it, right? Yeah, trying to control and manage that. So if you allow it to be what it really is, what happens to you having to change it and manage it?
I don't have to do that anymore.
What would that feel like?
Really free.
Yeah, what would you do with that freedom?
I have no idea.
Well, you get to find out, right? It's kind of like being a kid again, where you get to start over and go, oh my God, infinite possibilities in this life. I could do this. I could do that. I could change my mind.
Yeah.
I could learn this. Could change into that. Evolution. It's now you would then now live your life, right? You have that infinite space of freedom to live. Complete and totally free.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you're really looking for?
It is.
Yeah. So for the problem is you think that you get that when you're thin.
Yeah.
Do you really get that when you're thin?
No.
Yeah. Have you gotten it yet?
No.
What has happened through this idea that you get freedom when you're thin? What has happened, truthfully, to that freedom?
It's completely gone.
Why? Why is it gone?
Spending my whole time trying to get to it.
Well, and keep it. If you do get thin, let's just imagine you do get thin. Or I don't know what you weigh. What's your goal weight?
Well, I'm not as extreme as I was before, but like when I started, I'm 5'6", and I wanted to be 100 pounds or less. And I was like, I only ever got down to like 105.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to get to 100, but of course it's really hard to maintain that weight because you can't eat anything.
Yeah, you have to remain anorexic, right? You can't go out in public. You can't live. You have no freedom, right? Okay, do you see what I mean? Like, you literally thought at one point that if I weighed 100 pounds or less, I would be free. I could be myself. I could navigate the world and have infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
Right? What happened as you got thinner and thinner? What happened to that freedom?
It's completely gone. Like,
why? Why? Because you physically have what you wanted. You could see your hip bones. You could see the ribs. Your knees didn't touch. Shit like that. What happened to the freedom?
Never got it.
Why?
Because you have to keep doing it.
Yeah, you have to keep managing it. You have to keep it. Plus, all of your mind is focused in on the body. It's like cannibalizing from the inside. You can't look out. If you look out at the world and at life, what happens?
Can you rephrase that? Sorry.
When you got to 105, right? The closest you ever got to it. The idea when you set out to lose weight was that when I'm thin, I'll be free. I'll be free to be who I want. I'll be confident. Isn't that what you fantasized about? Wasn't that the fantasy, the dream?
I don't know. For me,
well, don't you agree that's what you thought when you first started? There was an idea that if I can control this, if I can do that, I'll be set.
Like, when I was at that point, I really was just, not over that one boy. And when I thought that if I got that skinny, that, he'd want me more than he wanted the other girl who was skinny, too. Which was, that was what I was trying to get when I was...
So would you say that you thought by having him you would feel good and free?
Yeah.
That the thinness was really just a route to getting him, and he was the source of the freedom, not the body.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Well, let's think of it this way. Do you really want someone else to have power over your life?
No.
And your freedom? Ever?
No.
I want you to really go into the thought of that. Do you really want that boy, or any boy for that matter, to be in control of your life's freedom? That your life is basically held hostage by a guy, or a girl, or a religion, or a concept, right?
I don't want that.
Because aren't you the one living this life? I mean, aren't you the one that's experiencing this life? Should you have to devote your experience to someone else?
No.
Okay, so the thinness ultimately is a route for you to get approval from someone else.
Yeah.
Either way, when you were thin, did it really give you what you wanted?
No.
So at this point, don't you agree? You're the one who's holding yourself to this. No one else is. Not him, not anybody.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, so the freedom that you think thinness will give you, when you're thin, does it really give you that freedom?
No.
What does it give you?
More of the same.
How would you describe that? What does it really give you?
Well, it's even worse, kind of, because the thinner you get, the more you have to do to keep that lower weight. The more you have to keep doing things, the more you can't, you have to isolate yourself. You can't really do anything that you wanted to do.
Should you have to do that for someone to like you?
No.
Should anybody have to work that hard for someone else to approve of you?
No.
Who's worth that? Is there anybody that is worth working that hard for their love and affection?
No.
How about your parents?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if that's what they wanted you to do to be lovable?
Yeah.
Okay, I have plenty of clients whose parents were that person, right? Should you have to do this for a husband?
No.
Right? Is that the type of person that you want to be with?
It's not.
Right? So I want you to look at that person, that boy, at that point in your life and say, was he worth this suffering? Was his attention worth it?
No. Because, like, I was never going to get what I wanted.
Even if you did, okay, should you have to suffer like that for someone's approval?
No.
I hear you say no, but I really want you to go into that, and I need you to really fill this out. Even if you did, even if he was like, oh, I love you, I like you, I want to be with you now. Okay? Screw the other girl, she's not thin enough for me. I like you. You look better in pictures. Let's take a selfie, put it on Instagram. Okay, I want you to go into what it requires for you to be thin enough for that person. Is there any human being whose love and attention is worth that darkness?
No.
Do you feel that way, or are you just saying that?
I mean, I think I feel that way.
Okay. It's okay. I mean, I want you...
I have a hard time, like, just thinking about things logically and being like, no, that's not right.
No, well, I want you to imagine if someone suffered that way for you to like them.
I wouldn't want anyone else to do that for me.
Can you imagine what it would take for someone to actually want someone else to do that?
Yeah, that person would be evil.
Yeah, they would. You're right. Very, very demonic. I want you to know that you're that person doing it to yourself. Right? Because don't you agree within yourself? You actually think you should work that hard and be that thin to be lovable for yourself, just for you to feel okay with yourself?
That kind of just like opened up my mind a little bit. I'm like, wow, I am kind of evil. Like, it feels like other people.
Well, the concept is pretty bad if you think about it. When you think about that, people have to be thin to be lovable, to be respected, to get attention, to be seen as special. Can you see why? You're basically saying that you should suffer like this, the way you do, to be valued.
Nobody should have to do that.
No, nobody. Can you imagine you were doing this at 14 and you're still doing it? Because you don't really think that you honestly believe within yourself that that's what I should do to be lovable. So the question you have to ask yourself is, if you stop all this bullshit, if you stop all of this abusiveness, because wouldn't you agree that the way you are with yourself is evil and it is abusive? It's horrible. It's way worse than anything you've ever experienced. This is way worse. If you stop and gain weight, is that forgivable? If you gain weight? Because you're choosing to stop all of this?
Yeah.
So let's just say you end up 160 pounds because you chose to stop the abuse. Is that okay? Is it okay for the body to just become what it is? Is there no compassion? I want you to really go into this for yourself. If you end up 200 pounds, let's just go to that worst case scenario. Don't you agree that if people knew the horror, they would have compassion for you and be like, oh, this is okay. This is okay.
Yeah, people knew. I can't imagine anyone who would want me to keep doing that.
Right, I know, right? I came to that awareness too, like, oh my God, if I could give a pill to people so that they had a taste of how bad this is, they would be so compassionate towards me gaining weight. They would be like, we're totally cool with you being morbidly obese. That is nothing compared to the darkness that you are experiencing trying to stay thin. Being overweight, is that really worth being ashamed of yourself?
No, not if that's just what you naturally are.
Right? And what if allowing it freed you from this satanic hell?
I have to do that.
You have to allow it. Not just, hope I don't. You have to really be okay with what it is. Don't you agree?
Yes.
And not just being okay with it, but really having compassion for how much you have suffered. Should you have to keep on suffering just so that you can feel special?
No.
Just to stand out. I mean, I want you to go into that. Just to stand out in a crowd. Should anybody have to suffer this way, this intensely, just to stand out?
No, nobody should have to do that.
Right? Do you really want attention for attached to a body that requires you stay completely demonic inside?
No, I don't.
Makes sense? Like, if people knew how dark your life was just to stay the thinness you were, would they still be attracted to you?
Probably not.
Because they wouldn't want to associate or even encourage it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's true. If they knew, that's the problem. They don't know how much you're suffering. They really don't even get it. If they did, they would be like, I don't want to feed into that. Mm-hmm. That's terrible. Nobody should have to be that just for me to say hi or to think that I like them. That's terrible. People wouldn't want to support it.
Yeah.
I want you to think about in this situation here, who here in this conversation knows your suffering the most?
I do.
You're correct. I know my suffering. My suffering was worth suicide for sure. It was that bad. Okay? Life was not worth living, and I still feel that way today. The way and the degree that I suffered is completely not worthy of being alive. It was horrible. Okay? All I can do is assume that you have a degree of that.
Yeah.
Okay? Wouldn't you rather be fat and free?
I would.
Me too. Like, when you really think about it, you get bigger clothes. You get bigger clothes. Wouldn't you rather not be noticed?
Yeah.
Me too. Rather blend into the background, right? I don't don't need to be special. I'd rather not be special. If specialness requires that dark hell of horror, I'd rather not be cool. I don't want to be popular. If popularity requires that I be thin and obsessive and depressed and suicidal and going to inpatient and outpatient therapists and completely lose my entire sense of beingness, I'd rather not be popular. I'd rather be the reject of the class. Because that would be easier, don't you think? If you were rejected from your class, wouldn't that be better than what you've got?
Yeah.
I know. So what do you think would happen if you just stopped everything you're doing, stopped all the exercise, stopped micromanaging your food, and you just ate when you were hungry and ate what you really wanted? No shame, no guilt, no bad food, no good food, none of that bullshit. You gonna be okay if someone doesn't like you because you're not thin anymore?
I feel like at first, I mean, if I've already accepted it, I don't really care what anyone else thinks.
Well, that's true, right? If you've accepted it and you've accepted that others might reject you, I think that's important too. Do you see that? That if I'm okay with this because I'm the one who I'm choosing that I shouldn't have to suffer like this, and I'm okay gaining weight with me because it's the body I'm in. If I'm okay with that because I believe I shouldn't have to suffer for something thinner, then are you okay if someone else isn't okay with that?
Yeah.
Did what I just say make sense to you?
It did make sense.
Yeah, so if let's just say some boy is not okay with you being overweight, are you going to be okay with that? Are you going to be okay with them not being okay with it? Especially knowing that they don't have a clue.
Yeah.
They really don't. Don't you agree that if a boy knew the darkness that having to be and stay thin caused in girls, right? Do you think they'd still support that?
No, I think they wouldn't even want to talk to me anymore.
They wouldn't want to support it. They wouldn't want to encourage it, support it. They wouldn't promote it. But I think they're clueless, right?
Yeah, they are.
They're clueless. You know who comes close are gay boys, because they're to some degree. There's a huge amount, in terms of population having eating disorders, gay men, because they're held to the same thin supremacy type thinking. Did you know that?
I kind of did that.
Yeah. It's really sad. So they get to experience the same insanity, trying to maintain this idea that thinness is more attractive. God, I'd rather be alone forever. Notice how everything I'm comparing aloneness to that darkness. Which one's worse?
The darkness.
No shit. At least if you're alone, you have freedom to do what you want, to be what you want, to create a life that is beneficial to you, that brings joy to you, even if you're alone.
Yeah.
Because you're in that darkness and you're paralyzed. You're lifeless. You have nothing. You have your thinness, but you have nothing. You're hollow. You're empty. There's nothing there. Right?
Right.
So, I mean, if you're okay being in a fatter body, and you're okay if people around you don't like it because they're unaware, right? Again, if they were aware of why you're okay with this, they would probably support you. But how do you tell someone what it's like? How do you really grasp and explain to someone how dark it is for you to maintain thinness? How do you explain that to someone?
I don't think you can.
It's impossible. You can't. I'm probably the first person who's come close to describing it for you. somewhat kind of accurate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even in those clinics, do they really grasp how dark this is?
No.
You can tell. You can tell they were clueless. You know what I mean? So it's like, so you can't move, you kind of have to forgive people ahead of time for being clueless. And you just have to know, I have to do this because I know the darkness. I am more aware than anybody on this planet, more than my parents, more than me, Robin over here. You're more aware than anybody here. And are you going to need someone to give you permission to not have to be in that darkness?
No.
I know, because no one else really gets it. So who's the one that has to give permission here for you to gain weight?
Me.
You have to do it. I can't do it. You're the one that has to go, this is not worth someone liking me. It's not worth getting respect. Do you really want respect given to you for this thinness and what it's taken you? Do you really want dark respect?
No, I don't want that.
Does that make sense? When I say dark respect, it's respect given to you for a thinner body that requires you stay in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want respect for this?
No.
If you do, can you see why you'll never recover?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, if you want respect for being thinner, you'll never recover. You have to give up respect given to you for being thinner. You have to, in order to recover, you have to say, I don't want respect for that reason. I reject it. Even if someone gives me, oh my God, you're so thin, I'm not going to pay attention to that.
Okay.
I don't want it. Even if I could get it, I don't want it. If someone thinks you're special because you're thin, do you really want thinness, specialness, special thinness? Do you really want that if it requires you stay in this hellhole?
No, I don't want that.
Me neither. So do you see where I'm taking you in your thought process?
Yeah.
These are the thoughts you probably never really took very serious. Right? You have to give up what you think you're getting out of the thinness. You have to say, I don't want friendship because I'm thin. That means the friendship requires I'm miserable, that I'm mentally ill. The friendship requires I'm ill. I don't want it. I don't want a friendship that requires me having mental illness. I don't want it. I don't want a boyfriend that requires me having mental illness. I don't want respect from people that requires I have mental illness. I do not want love and attention for mental illness. Don't want it. I'd rather be invisible. I'd rather gain weight. I'd rather people think I'm lazy. They can think what they want, right?
Right.
Because don't you agree? They don't understand this. So by thinking that, they're just ignorant. They just don't know. So if you let go of this darkness in everything that you do to keep yourself in this isolation, if you let it all go and your body gains weight,
Yeah.
is that worthy of being loved, loving yourself, even if you're overweight? Is that really, are you lovable?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that way, or are you just saying that because it sounds good?
I think I'm saying it because it sounds good.
I know, I can totally tell. So you have to go in and feel that. So we need to schedule our next session.
Okay.
But that's where you need to go. I can't just sit here and go, oh yeah, you're going to love yourself. No, you have to go into this situation. You need to re-listen to this session. You really need to go in to ask yourself within yourself, if I seriously let this go and my body gets fatter, can I still be happy? knowing that I'm free from that mental illness doing that. I'm allowing my body to gain weight to free myself from this darkness. I am allowing my body to gain weight. And I'm willing to do it. And I expect it. So that I can free myself from this torture. I don't deserve to be tortured.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where you need to go in your mind and your thoughts. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest you do as you move forward from this session is I want you to, in the moments, there's a moment where you feel like you're gaining weight, you're getting fatter, I need you to go into that. Should I have to suffer for someone else to like me? Should I have to keep on doing this just to be special? Do I really want that type of specialness? I'm going to finish with this question. What would happen if you, in fact, are truthfully 200 pounds? How would that feel to know that, to be that, and to accept that? What would happen?
Well, probably in the state I'm in right now, it would freak me out a lot.
Okay, well, I didn't say in the state you are now. I said if you were truthfully going to be and are 200 pounds, what would happen?
I don't know.
Well, what would?
200 pounds.
Yeah, and what would happen moving forward if that's the truth?
I keep living my life.
Yeah, what would happen if everybody finds out you're 200 pounds forever, permanently? What would happen?
Probably wouldn't be that different. No.
What wouldn't be that different?
Like, I'd live the same life I'm living right now, but maybe might not. Like, if there's people that don't accept that, I'd be like, okay, bye.
And then what? And then what?
Probably find new people, like new friends that are better for me. Probably more people that are understanding.
Wouldn't it be relieving?
It would be.
That's what I'm guiding you. It would be so relieving for you. Would you be needing the work we're doing?
No.
Nope. Would you ever suffer with an eating disorder again?
No.
No. Because that's a choice. Don't you agree you'd have to want to lose weight?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you rather be 200 pounds?
Yeah.
I mean, really think about that. And then once you're 200 pounds and here you are and it's your natural state of being and everybody sees it and knows you're 200 pounds, don't you agree? That would be like the most amazing gift ever because you could move on with your life.
Yes.
Start over. You just start over right now. Just be like, all right, so what's my life about? Let's move on. What do I really want life to be about? Do you really want your life to be about thinness?
No.
No. Wouldn't you rather it be about something else?
Mm-hmm.
Like a variety of things, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's schedule our follow-ups.